Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Islamic Economic Series. In a world that often sees this huge divide between faith and science, you have to ask the question, does the Quran offer its own framework for scientific inquiry? Today, we're going to dive into a pretty profound idea, that the Quran isn't just a source of spiritual guidance, but that it actually presents a coherent, systematic methodology for discovering truth about the world all around us. So here's our roadmap. We'll start by looking at what this Quranic methodology actually is. Then we'll get really clear on the difference between method and methodology. That's key. After that, we'll explore the tools for the job, the intellect and the senses, and the moral compass you need to use them. And finally, we'll see how it all comes together in a powerful method of reasoning. Now, let's get one thing straight. The argument here isn't that the Quran is some kind of science textbook full of equations. Not at all. It's offering something much, much deeper, more foundational, a distinct model for how to think methodologically. It's a framework that brings together our intellect, our senses, and our ethics, all in the pursuit of knowledge. And this isn't just a random collection of teachings. The Quran lays out a really coherent and purposeful methodology that, honestly, it demands you get involved. It calls on us to actually observe the world, to reason deeply about it, and then to synthesize what we find. This whole process fosters a holistic understanding that connects our faith directly to our existence in the universe. It requires both our minds and our spirits to be fully engaged. Okay, to really grasp this framework, we've got to define our terms. The words method and methodology might sound similar, but they have very precise meanings here, and telling them apart is the key to unlocking this whole concept. So think of it like this. A method, or a manhaj, that's like a specific recipe for a cake. It's a clear set of rules, a defined path to get a result. It's the internal system. But methodology, Manhajiyyah, that's like the entire science of baking itself. It's the broader philosophy that helps you understand why the recipe works, how you could create new recipes, and how to judge which one is best. It's the external system that governs all the individual methods. And if we dig a little deeper into manhaj, the word itself literally means a clear path or a road. So in a scientific sense, it's the structured plan, it's the rules of the game that guide a researcher. And the Quran reinforces this idea with words like sabil, meaning path, and sirat, the straight path, always emphasizing a clear, structured way forward. Manhajiyyah, on the other hand, is the science of those methods. It's not about just following a single path. It's about understanding the principles of map-making itself. It's the big-picture philosophy that asks those crucial questions. What makes for good research? How do we design methods that actually lead us to the truth? This is the framework that holds and validates all the individual methods inside it. All right, so we've defined the framework. Now let's talk about the tools of the trade. The Quranic methodology points to two main instruments for gaining knowledge, our intellect and our senses. The Quranic view of the intellect, or aql, is incredibly dynamic. It's not some static box you just fill with facts. It's the faculty that actually receives and processes knowledge. And here's the kicker. The root word for aql in the Quran only ever appears as a verb. Think about that. This implies that intellect isn't something you have, it's something you do. It's a constant process, an active engagement, not just something you possess. And you can see how deep this concept is by the different words the Quran uses for the intellect's various functions. Hijj is like a protective barrier, the reasoning that stops us from doing things we shouldn't. Nuha is like a guiding light, the intellect that keeps us away from falsehood. And then there's lub, which is the pure core intellect, unclouded by ego or desires. That's the tool for grasping ultimate truths. So this all points to a really symbiotic relationship between our intellect and revelation. Ontologically, revelation needs an intellect to even be understood. Epistemologically, revelation adds to and completes the knowledge our intellect gathers from the world. And methodologically, the intellect is the very tool we use to discover truth, guided by the principles in revelation. They are not enemies. They are essential partners in the search for complete knowledge. Of course, the intellect doesn't work in a vacuum. It needs data. And that's where the senses come in. The Quran puts a huge emphasis on hearing and sight as the primary tools for gathering empirical data. Our senses are the gateways for information, providing the raw material that our intellect then has to analyze and make sense of. This verse just lays it out so perfectly. It shows the whole integrated system. It says we're born as blank slates, knowing nothing, and then we are gifted the tools of knowledge. Hearing and sight are empirical senses, and hearts, which is a term that covers our cognitive abilities, including the intellect. It's showing us that observation and reason are intertwined gifts given to us for the very purpose of learning. Okay, this brings us to an absolutely crucial part of this framework. The Qur'anic methodology isn't some cold, value-free process. It is deeply, deeply rooted in an ethical system where just the act of seeking knowledge is a moral act, and it comes with serious responsibilities. This verse right here sets the foundational principle for this ethical system, sincerity of purpose. Notice the order. It says to stand up for God before you reflect. That sequence frames the entire intellectual project. It means your intention must be oriented towards a higher truth, free from the distortions of ego or fame or personal gain. So, standing for the truth is the ethical bedrock of this whole approach. It is an active, ongoing commitment to an impartial search for truth, no matter where it might lead you. It demands that a researcher consciously works to set aside their own biases, their preconceived ideas, and any pressure from society that could cloud their judgment. And if standing for the truth is the core virtue, then Hawā, or base desires, is its main opponent. Hawā is all that internal noise, ambition, arrogance, prejudice, that just corrupts the path to knowledge. It's the internal force that twists our reasoning and makes objectivity impossible. So, a huge part of the Qur'anic methodology is the self-discipline it takes to overcome Hawā. So, let's put it all together. We have the tools, intellect, and senses. We have the moral compass, the commitment to truth. So what is the actual method of reasoning that the Quran proposes? How does this all work in practice? The process is called Manhaj al-Istidlāl. You can think of this as a systematic mental operation that is built on evidence and proof. The whole goal is to move logically from what is known and observable to what is unknown or unseen, using a structured, evidence-based approach to come to a conclusion. And this reasoning follows a really clear two-step process. First, it demands that you rigorously engage with the observable physical world. You use your senses and your intellect to understand the scene. But, and this is so important, it doesn't stop there. The second step is to use that empirical knowledge as a foundation, really like a springboard, to contemplate the higher, unseen realities, or al-Ghayb. And to accomplish this, the Quran uses a whole toolkit of reasoning methods. You'll find deductive reasoning, inductive reasoning from looking at historical patterns, analogical representation through parables, and on top of all that, it's constantly telling us to just go out and use guided and direct sensory observation of the natural world. It's a dynamic, multifaceted way of building a comprehensive case. So, in the end, the real power of this methodology is its integration. It is totally grounded in the empirical evidence of the world we can see. But then it uses that solid foundation to build a rational bridge to understanding the world we can't see. It creates a complete system of knowledge that just refuses to make you choose between science and faith. And that leaves us with a really critical question for our time, doesn't it? In a world that so often tries to pit faith and science against each other, how could this integrated Quranic model, a model that champions both empirical observation and metaphysical reflection, how could that offer us a more holistic, a more complete path forward? See you in the next one. Subscribe, like, and comment.